So now that we've practiced sketching f prime from f, we'd like to spend a little bit of time, not too much, going the other direction. We'll do more of this near the end of the semester, but for now, I know some people find it useful to do these sorts of problems. So we've got our same chart, and we're given a bunch of graphs of f prime now. So I've got my graphs of f prime down below. So we're going to go upward this time. That's the same way we're going to read the chart, from the lower line to the top line. And you'll notice that now we're asked to sketch two possible graphs of f. So let's see how this works out here. So in this case, my f prime is a horizontal line. It's constant. So maybe this is just staying up there at 3. So f prime is always 3. What does that tell us about f? Remember, f prime is the slope of f. So this is telling us the slope of f is always 3. What does a graph look like whose slope is always 3? That's just a linear function with a slope of 3. Now, I don't know where to start my graph, and in fact, that's why we're allowed to sketch two possible graphs. So I could start, say, right here, and just go up with a slope of 3, like that. I could start down here and go up with a slope of 3, like that. These graphs are meant to be parallel to each other. So you'll notice that f being positive and negative doesn't matter, right? Where I cross this axis here or here makes no difference. They have the same f prime. That's why we're allowed to sketch. Once I've sketched one, I can just take the graph and shift it up or down as much as I like and get another possible graph of f. Because remember, f prime only tells us about the shape of f, not the actual position of f relative to the x-axis. So let's try a more sophisticated one here. So I would like to divide this. I think a good strategy is to divide this graph up into the regions where something important happens on f prime, meaning where f prime changes sign between positive and negative, or f prime changes between increasing and decreasing. So ask yourself right now, how many places does something important like that happen? So I see one here. F prime goes from positive to negative here. So I'm just going to try to draw a little guiding line up there. F prime changes back from negative to positive over here. So something interesting will happen there. And then there's another place where f prime changes between increasing and decreasing, and that's down here. So let's try to draw this first one using the chart. So what two important things do we know about f prime here? We know f prime is positive, because f prime is above the axis, and f prime is decreasing. So if you go back over here, you chose f prime. We chose f prime was positive, and f prime was decreasing. So that tells us these two things about f. F should be increasing, concave down. And remember, I don't know where to start the graph of f, above or below the x-axis. So I've just got to start it somewhere. So I'm going to start here and draw increasing, concave down. Of the four possibilities, that's the hardest for most people to draw, by the way. Increasing, concave down is the one that goes like this. From here to here, what two things do we know about f prime? F prime is now negative, meaning below the x-axis, and f prime is still decreasing. So f prime was negative and f prime was decreasing. So that tells us these two things about f. F should be decreasing, concave down. So that's the one where we're going like this, decreasing and concave down. That's not very good. Decreasing, concave down. And if your graph is crossing the x-axis somewhere or in a different place than I'm going to, that's perfectly fine. And then here we know what two things about f prime. F prime is negative but increasing. So now we're picking these two things from f prime. So that tells us that f should be decreasing but now concave up. So f is decreasing still but in a concave up way. So we're going like this, meaning we had an inflection point right there, right? F went from concave down to concave up. And then finally, what do we know about out here? We know f prime is positive above the axis, and f prime is increasing. So we're picking these two from the f prime line. So that tells us f should be increasing and f should be concave up. So that's looking something like that. And once we've drawn one, I can just shift it downward to draw another one, or upward. And you'll notice we never cared about the concavity of f prime, right? Because Nothing about concavity appears in our chart related to f prime. Let's do this last one here. So how many places do we have something important happening here? We change sign. Here f prime changes from increasing to decreasing. And here f prime changes from decreasing to increasing. So let's try to draw this a little bit differently without the chart. Remember, f prime is the slope of f. So what do we know about f prime here? F prime is negative and getting less negative. So the slope of f is negative but getting less negative. What does it mean for the slope to be negative but getting less negative? It means you're going like this. So you are decreasing and concave down on the graph of f. So f is starting somewhere here, let's say, decreasing. Did I say decreasing concave down? I drew decreasing concave up in the air, so I meant to say decreasing concave up, which is what we're drawing here. Now what do we know about f prime? F prime now is positive and getting more positive. So that means the slope of f is positive and getting more positive. What does a graph look like whose slope is positive and getting more positive? That's increasing and concave up. And of course you can do these from the chart if you like. Nothing wrong with that. Just try to give you a different way of looking at it. And now what do we know about f prime? F prime is positive but getting less positive. So what does it mean for your slope to be positive getting less positive? That means you're increasing but concave up. And it's very tempting to make your slope of f become 0 here, but should the slope of f become 0 here? Is f prime 0 here? No. The slope of f prime is 0. That's a different question. F prime itself is not 0 because f prime is above the x-axis. The only place when f prime is 0 is right here. This is the only place when f should have a slope of 0. F prime is some positive number here because f prime is above the x-axis, so we should not have a slope of 0 there. And so then what happens the rest of the way? F prime is positive, getting more positive. That's the same sort of thing that we saw here. That is increasing concave up. And I've tried to draw that carefully so that we see the slope is not 0 right there. And once I've drawn one, I can shift it up or down to get another one. And that's that. That's sketching f given f prime. And we have an applet for you to experiment with changing how f prime looks and seeing how that changes how f looks. So you can play around with that. And I think we also have a check your understanding for you.